I see that smile on your face, Laura.
Yeah, I feel blessed to be here. Thank you.
It's an honor. So, everyone, we told you, Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, we're going to continue to share life experiences and we are not going to stop. We are in Australia virtually with Laura Chappell. Did I say that right?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Okay, yes. So Laura went through some troubled teenage uh, issues, and now she's adult. She is helping in that area. So we're going to bring Laura up to introduce herself. And Laura, we want to thank you for tuning in the Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So I am in Sydney now, but you might be able to hear from my accent that I'm English, very English. So that's where I was born and raised, and moved to Sydney about 13 years ago. When I was a teenager, although I had a blessed family and upbringing in that sense, I experienced some serious bullying. I had very bad mental health, particularly depression and anxiety. I used to have panic attacks. And then that led me to probably expressing myself very unhealthily with substance misuse and getting myself into lots of trouble. But as an adult, I've managed to kind of heal myself, and I've kind of turned around, and I feel and hope that I've become the person that I needed as a teenager. And I work with teens struggling to navigate the adolescent years, just as I did, and I help support their parents as well to do so in supporting their teens. I'm excited to be here and being open and honest about my challenges as a teenager, and which can be confronting, but I hope I can help others by sharing my story.
It's wonderful to have you here, Laura. Thank you. But we do always start from the beginning with everyone. Tell us a little bit about your childhood growing up. What was your home structure like, and if you experienced any trauma during those years?
I feel, to be honest, I probably had the quintessential upbringing with, a big country house and a garden. And although my dad worked hard, he always made sure he was home for, dinner and bath time, bedtime routine. My mum was a stay-at-home mum. She was actually from the Bahamas and herself had a very disadvantaged and poor upbringing. She lost her dad when she was young. So I feel like although I had, middle-class, wealthy experience in my childhood, I also learned a lot from my mom, and I think I was raised very grounded, and I had a very supportive, loving family unit. I think a lot of my, issues came when I was bullied from a very young age at school. And I think as well, my head space was probably beyond my years. I used to read a lot into things, and I used to question a lot of things. And I think that combined with the bullying just kind of set me up to have serious mental health issues when I was kind of a bit older. I feel like my actual childhood at home was beautiful. And, I had a brother and we got on well, as much as siblings do. I think it was later years that I started to really struggle.
Okay, so let's jump into the bullying. When did the bullying start, and where did it start at?
Look, I guess what I've learned in later years is that like a trauma brain doesn't necessarily remember things as clearly as they might have happened. But from my memory, I remember being pretty young, pretty sad. And when I did the maths with, what age was I at what school and everything like that, the bullying would have started very young, like when I was maybe 4 or 5. Because it was I went to my secondary school at 7, and it was before that. I grew up in this tiny village in England, and a lot of the school kids, we would do school runs so that, one parent would kind of take a bunch of the kids and And then, you know, they'd alternate days and things like that just to make life easier. And it was one of the girls that we shared a school run with as well. So she was very much in my life. And unfortunately, she then followed me to my secondary school. So it would have been between 4 and 11 was this one particular person that definitely had a massive impact on my life and psyche. Yeah.
And, you know, what was the bullying about? How did that affect you? You know, how did that transpire?
Again, like from what I remember, I remember being very isolated. I remember being like having feelings that I was bad. So although I can't necessarily remember exactly what she would have said to me or anything like that, I know that it was very much like, you know, it made me feel really bad about myself and isolated me away from other people. Especially in my secondary school, it only just opened up as a boys' school to accept girls and be co-ed, and we were the first group of girls. So there was only 7 of us in the entire year, and she was one and I was one. And I just remember her putting kind of, I don't know, the girls against me and grouping up against me and just isolating me a lot. So yeah, I mean, luckily my brother was at that school, so I sort of ended up hanging out with him a lot, and I have for years probably had a better relationship with guys because of that as well. I found girls quite threatening, I think, because of my experiences with her. But look, I don't, you know, as an adult, I don't blame her. She was a child. I'm sure with my knowledge now around, you know, child abuse and how children act, not that I'm saying she was abused, but a lot of kids, you know, they copy behaviors, or, you know, they transfer something that's been happening to them or emotions that they can't deal with onto someone else. And I feel like I've always been kind of kind-hearted and probably an easy target as well. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. It's so long ago in those years, I can just remember what I felt and what it kind of did for me socially.
So what are some of the things that she used to do to you?
Well, look, she used to lie a lot. Like these are the things that I think stand out. Like one of the other girls said something nasty about her dad, something to do with him having glasses. And she blamed me for it. She said that I had said this thing, even though my dad wore glasses. So I was never going to insult someone that had glasses. I remember the name, but I don't feel like I really want to repeat it. So I got the blame for that. And, you know, people were kind of saying nasty things to me because they thought I had said this comment. And I'm pretty sure it was over this as well, that her mum actually slapped me for saying this lie. Yeah. So I know, like earlier you said around, you know, did I experience any trauma at home? And I don't feel like directly I did, but when I look back as an adult, I feel that in a sense that my mum wasn't there to protect me from that. And so in reflection, maybe like I learned I was maybe a little bit unsafe in that sense. Because yeah, I mean, it stood out to me, but yeah, a lot of lies and isolating, kind of, you know, getting the other groups on her side and yeah, cutting me out of games, play, all of those sorts of things.
Now, question, when you said your mother is from the Bahamas, are you mixed race, or is she just Bahamian by nationality?
She's mixed race. So my grandma, her side was from Haiti. And then her dad, my granddad, was from the Bahamas, and she was born and raised in the Bahamas. So yeah, mixed.
Do you think that was part of the basis of any of the bullying? You know, I'm not sure if you physically stood apart from, you know, most of your classmates, but you think that was maybe underlying reasoning? Maybe.
I think I was probably like an easy target as well. Like I've just always been kind of open-hearted, good-natured, like trying to see the best in people. And I think as an adult, those are good qualities to have, but as a child, probably not necessarily. I think that made me a target. But maybe, I mean, you know, my mum was darker skinned, and I hadn't thought about it, to be honest with you, like that.
Yeah, I would agree with Sid, because that Was she colored?
No, no,
Yeah,
no.
that could have been a part of it, that you were
Yeah,
going through some racism.
yeah, maybe. Yeah. I think like I'm so, and also I guess I'm so rooted. I feel stronger ties to my Haitian and Bahamian roots than I do my English.
Hmm.
I'm much more. I've got my mum, definitely got my mum's constitution, and I actually have very curly hair and stuff. And you know, I thrive more in, you know, just the heat, and like I say, and then I love the culture and everything like that. My Bahamian roots v the British. So yeah, maybe yeah, maybe it's true. Yeah.
So what at that point, how were you able to overcome that, or were you even, was it something you just kind of had to swallow, pick up, and keep moving, or did you find ways to like defend yourself or feel better about yourself?
I think that was the beginning of like me spiraling and very, very dark times. So I ended up very, because I think I was very isolated socially like that. I ended up very introverted. I ended up like, you know, labeling internally myself as, you know, bad. There's things wrong with me. Bad body image issues. I ended up to the point I would self-harm. And I think I started that maybe around 13-ish. I started to cut myself. And then I think I was about 15 that I did attempt suicide. So I massively spiraled. And it was a long journey, probably later teens, early 20s, that I started to work on myself. And I guess I became very spiritual, which helped. And I don't know, I still feel sometimes like there's still impacts of it. I don't like being the center of attention. I don't like my social media and stuff like that, showing up on that. And I think that is a lot to do with like being visible. I think when I have a subconscious conscious association with just like being visible meant that I was bullied and I was targeted, and the focus was on me. And I still shy away from that. Like I wouldn't have a big birthday party or anything like that, for instance. So I still think maybe there's elements that impact me. And body image I still struggle with sometimes, for sure.
And so that came from the bullying, I guess, that piece of it. Um, and at a young age, I wanted to ask, like, that piece of it, did it come from the bullying, and was that a trigger towards your mental health issues?
Yeah, I think the bullying was a big part of it, and then I think that I have natural tendencies as well to be maybe more introverted. I analyze things a lot and think about things a lot. So I think it was probably partly personality, and then mixed with that, I guess, childhood bullying and the trauma that it brought to me, probably just exacerbated stuff. So I think perfect storm, maybe you could put it.
If you could explain to our viewers, I guess kind of the best way to correlate how self-harm made you feel, or how it made you feel better, or how you thought it made you feel better. Because a lot of the times, people are just like, I don't, how is that going to make you feel better? They don't realize that is an option to make you feel better. And it just kind of takes breaking it down to knowing that maybe they just have other type of coping mechanisms, but it all comes, to the same result. So what did self-harm do for you in those times?
So self-harm, it was, I don't know if you've ever had those feelings that are like so intense inside you, it feels like you're going to explode with it. And it was just, I felt like I was going crazy and I didn't know what to do with myself. And self-harm for me, it would focus me in the moment. Because it was this surreal, like, I don't know, the whole world around would just like merge away, and this is just this one focus that you would have. Then clearly there's the element of pain that snaps you into something and makes you focus onto that. And then there was this feeling as well of like release of these emotions that came out with the blood. That just, I guess it's like popping a balloon. And it would just calm me. I think probably there's something said as well for all the natural, I probably get these words like the hormones wrong, but everything that your body kicks out for you when you cut yourself or when you feel harm or threat or something like that. And then there's just that element of like having to take care of the wound as well and nurture yourself, I guess, in a sense, and look after yourself and yeah. But then clearly there's the aftermath of, you know, the scars and the shame of it. It doesn't last for very long. So I ended up having to cut longer, deeper to get the same sensations that you would get and the same release that I would get the more that I did it. So yeah, and then obviously there's elements of like the hiding it and, like I say, the negative feelings around it as well. So it's, I don't know, it's a mixed bag, I guess. It's much healthier ways, like you said, of dealing with it. But sometimes I think it's just, yeah, it helped at the time.
So, how long did you self-harm yourselves? And with the self-harm, did you ever have suicidal thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I had suicidal thoughts a lot of just, you know, I guess into twofold of the whole, I felt like worthless. I didn't feel like I should be here, that, you know, if maybe all these things that this girl said was true about me. And, you know, I was so isolated and had no friends, like who would even care or miss me if I went. And there was this element of just like, life was just so hard. Like it would just be so much easier and a better place to be somewhere else. I wasn't scared of death. I mean, I was so scared of living, to be honest with you. And this being what my story and my journey was, I was less scared of the dying part of it. So I had for a long time suicidal thoughts and just such deep self-hatred, which is probably another element of the self-harming. It was like a punishment side of stuff, like you deserved it. And you know, and I expressed other ways of self-harming as well, which was, you know, drinking alcohol, just putting myself in risky situations, just, you know, not being careful or cautious of myself. Even tattoos, piercings, that was an element of it as well. And trying to change myself and make myself better. So that was, yeah. So definitely the self-harm stuff. How long, I think was the other question, how long I self-harmed for?
Yeah. How long did you go through this transition in your life with self-harm?
Brutally, honestly, I did a lot when I was younger, for maybe from 12, 13-ish to like late 18, 19, took a break. But then I've had relapses. I did have relapses. When I came to Australia, I actually had a bit of a rough relationship for a guy that I moved here to be with, and a bit of a difficult time when I first arrived, and I self-harmed then. And then I did again a little bit actually with COVID and everything that happened. Not that I told anyone this. Yeah, around COVID, I had struggled a lot there, so I actually self-harmed again then, but I haven't for a little while. And I'm hoping I don't again, but yeah.
And what was, was there a particular reason you moved out to Australia? Were you having issues with the move itself, acclimating and adapting to that side of the world?
Yeah, like I moved here to be with my ex-boyfriend. So he was English, but lived here. I actually met him at my cousin's wedding in Mallorca. And then we chatted for a couple of months. And then with Australia, I think things have changed now, but before you could get a work travel visa, but you had to get it before your 31st birthday. And I was heading towards that. So I was just like, this is something, I lost my mum as well when I was younger. So she passed away when I was like 25. But losing her, one thing it taught me was just to you've got to grasp life, and you never know what's going to happen. And so I just said to him, I was like, look, I'll come out, see how things go. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out and I move back to the UK. Best case, we're together and I stay in Australia. So I took that leap of faith. So I think a bunch of things, probably. It was, it's a big move, no friends, family. I didn't have a job or anything like that. I moved straight into his place. And then actually we had a bit of a rough relationship, to be honest. And so, yeah, I think combined those things. I had a relapse of like body image issue stuff as well. That all came up for me. And yeah, I don't know. I know with hindsight, you shouldn't have, but I think, so many overwhelming feelings, and I didn't really have anyone to talk to about it or anything, and it just seemed a way to go. But yeah.
So when you say you had a relapse of body imaging, can you explain to the audience what you mean by that? And then and with that, were you going through an abusive relationship?
Now I know it to be emotionally, yes. So I want to own part of this as well. So look, I had body image stuff when I was younger, and then I actually figured out in my 20s, I was actually very self-assured. I knew who I was, free-spirited, kind of loved myself and everything. And then, when I kind of moved out, my ex was very critical of my body, and he kind of would comment on what I ate and would say that I needed to lose weight, and if I lost weight, I had to go to the gym and tone up, and was very image conscious and body conscious himself, and I fed back into that for sure. And I guess I thought I'd healed some stuff, but it all came back up again, and a lot of internalizing and self-hatred, and I don't know, maybe that's it as well. Like a kind of I guess the feelings and thoughts that I was having reminded me of those feelings and thoughts I had as a teen, and what I did to deal with them as a teen was to self-harm. So I don't know, like subconsciously, I was then sort of triggered into using the same methods that I had before, because rightly, wrongly, they kind of worked for me at the time. So anyway, and I had a depressive episode again. Went back on medication and stuff. So it was definitely another challenging period.
Definitely understood. Now, during, let's take the pandemic, when you were talking about during that time and quarantining, what exactly was your struggle? How did you get through that time, being isolated, possibly not being a good atmosphere with your ex? How were you able to move past that?
Yeah. Well, look, luckily, I mean, it was 7.5 years, but I did get out of the relationship in was it end of 2018? So I was actually living alone through the pandemic, and we had some very strict rules around isolation in Australia. So, I mean, at one point you couldn't go anywhere beyond sort of a 5K radius. Luckily I had dogs, so I would walk them a lot and get out and about a bit, but it was extremely isolating. But I had also started seeing this guy, and he had gone to Singapore for work, and he got stuck there because all the borders shut down and everything like that. So I was in this new relationship and separated from him. So I think that was a big part of it, was just isolation. And I think when you've got a propensity for mental health, I've had episodes throughout my entire life so far, so I know that I need to do certain things to stay on top of it, and some of those were taken away from me just because of isolation. Like, I'm not a hugely social person, but I do need my key people. I did find it very struggling, and but I think a lot of people ended up with mental health struggles, didn't they, during the pandemic and stuff. So I feel like it was maybe a normal response, and I didn't need to go back on meds or anything like that, but I did tap into therapy again. That's something I've done also throughout my life as well, is recognize when I needed someone to talk to and someone else's outside point of view. And it was actually her that said to me that I was in an emotionally abusive relationship, which I hadn't really figured out, to be honest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, you say that at one point in your life you went through substance abuse. When did that start, and how long did you go through a substance abuse? And what was your choice of substance abuse?
I started smoking. I know it doesn't seem bad. I was smoking cigarettes when I was like 14 for the nicotine. I started drinking at a young age as well. I would say 14 as well. And then maybe a little bit later, 15, well, not much, all around the same period, to be honest with you. I then started to smoke weed. And I used to have, I don't want this to come across as like actual voices in my head, because it wasn't to that extent that it was, someone else's voices. It was my own negative, screaming, self-hatred, internalized voices was so loud that actually smoking weed calmed me, and it centered me, and it brought me into the moment. It almost made me meditate in a sense. And so I smoked weed probably until I was like 30, stopped cigarettes at 20, 21. Alcohol, probably on and off, to be honest with you. I feel like I stopped using it for mental health when I was in my 20s, but then I definitely enjoyed my partying and stuff. I dabbled with cocaine as well around when my mum got sick, because it helped me kind of burn the candle at both ends and sort of get through that. But that I did for a couple of years and put down quite well easily, I feel. And then with alcohol though, sometimes I haven't for a while, but I did again when I first moved out to Australia. I drank a lot then, and a bit through the pandemic, because we were still able to access alcohol here. I don't know about the US, but our bottle shops and supermarkets were all open all the time pretty much. So, yeah.
And how were you able, was it just kind of a mind over matter thing, or, did you actually do rehab and things like that, or, you just kind of?
No, I didn't do rehab. I mean, stopping cigarettes. Actually, I went out clubbing one night and smoked so many I couldn't stand the thought of smoking ever again. So that was that. Weed, actually, I needed dental surgery. The dentist said that I couldn't have it if I smoked weed. So I stopped that. I feel like there had to be just something that was more important than what I was using it for, if that makes sense. And when these things came up, and then, like I say, cocaine I used for a period of time. Again, I haven't touched that for years. And then alcohol, I don't feel I use it as a crux. I probably have addictive tendencies. But I would have like a couple of glasses, and I get pretty tiddly nowadays, and I'll go months without drinking. But I'm conscious that I have an addictive personality, either with substances, but I could also get addicted to, exercise or a subject and studying something and having to know everything about it. And I know it's part of my personality, and I need to be aware of it.
Okay. So there's a period that you also talked about, panic attacks. What triggered the panic attacks, and what did the panic attacks look or feel like inside?
So panic attacks were definitely during my teen years. I haven't had one for a very long time, luckily, but a lot of it, I don't know, maybe I stay out of situations I would get them in. I can't deal with big crowds. I'm very energetically sensitive, and just I guess I pick up on everyone else's energy a lot more, and I hate big crowds. So sometimes it would be like if I was out clubbing or just in a big group of people or something, or something I was very anxious about, what it would look like. I started to learn that I would start tapping, like either my fingers on a table, or my leg, or my foot would start tapping, and I would know that build up of energy is coming. And then, to be honest with you, my stomach would go. I would feel sick, and I'd have to get out of wherever I was. And, you know, say if that was a club or you know, around a group of people, I would just tell my friend, and they'd have to get my belongings, and I'd just have to get out of that space and get into the open. But they're not nice things. Yeah, really, really horrible things to have to deal with. So I feel sorry for people who struggle with them, for sure.
Absolutely. So when was your next, I guess, when was the next kind of moment of happiness? Or when did you move past, you know, all of the relapses, backsliding, you know, volatile relationships? You know, when was the next period you felt like you could just breathe? And, you know, how did that take place?
Yeah. Look, I've learned from when I was younger all these things that I kind of need to do to keep on top of stuff. And so I've meditated now twice a day since I was like 16 or something, 15, 16. And I have these regular kind of bubble baths. I love my bubble baths and have to kind of do those regularly. And just, yeah. And so I feel like even though I had a moment relapse and self-harm during like the pandemic, I still feel like I managed to keep some level of like, I don't know, presence and positivity throughout that as it progressed. And so after that, and to be honest with you, the man in my life now, although he's still away and it's difficult and struggles, like he's been fantastic for me as well. And I feel like seen and heard, and he's helped me with my body image stuff because he just loves me for who I am and things. And I feel like having that support, weirdly, although he lives in another country, I feel like that might have actually been the best thing for me, because it's having someone in my life who is there, who believes me, who calls me up on stuff. Like, he doesn't take my shit, or if I'm feeling sorrowful for myself, he'll validate me, but then he's like, you know, you've got this, and picks me up and helps me kind of sort myself out. But I've had to do it still by myself and still build like my strength by myself, because he isn't physically here and he can't always talk to me or anything like that. So, you know, he always said to me, he's just like, I don't walk in front of you. I don't even walk beside you. He's like, I walk behind you. So you've got this, but if you fall, I'm here to catch you. And that's been, I think, just like super empowering for me. And yeah, I feel like I'm beautifully happy. And, you know, I have no doubt life's always going to throw struggles my way, but I nut down into my spirituality, and, you know, I know everything happens for a greater good, even if I don't know it at the time, and just try and tap into that, to be honest with you.
Love it. So through this, you went into a depression. So now do you feel like you're coming out of your depression piece? And then I want to ask, what started the depression, and what are some of the things, when did you realize you were depressed?
I guess I go back. So I probably didn't know it was depression until, I guess, okay. So look, my parents found out about my self-harming when I was probably about 15. And they thought they responded the best, and I'm sure they responded like a lot of parents would, and freaked out and was so worried for my safety. They then went to the doctors and got me referred to a psychologist, which raised a lot of stuff for me because I felt it was behind my back. I didn't want to go and everything like that. So I did go, but I didn't say a single word during my entire session. So actually quite a feat, to be honest with you. But it wasn't, you know, yeah. I mean, then therapy wasn't good for me because I didn't choose to go and I didn't engage. But it was then when language was used around me about being depressed and, you know, having anxiety and mental health and everything. And I ended up being put on medication as well around then, which, look, I medication, I feel like it definitely has its place, but I guess I like to look at it more as scaffolding around a house, and you use it to scaffold while you use everything else to build up that house again, and then you can take away the scaffolding. I do question sometimes they're using medication for young kids, and, you know, should other things be tried first? You know, like, why is that kid depressed? Usually it's, you know, there's external factors going on, and, you know, you try and address them first. So that's probably when I first understood that I was depressed, or that my state of being and the way that I thought about life wasn't normal. And yeah, and I've had big periods. I wouldn't even say that I got depressed when my mum was sick and passed away. I feel like I responded like any other person would. I probably handled it pretty well, to be honest with you. So yeah, and I think it's learning what you need. It's learning about self-care. It's prioritizing yourself. And as I said, over the years, I've learned these certain things that I need to keep me at baseline. At times I've taken, you know, supplements and things like that, but I haven't been on antidepressants since like when I was 30, when I first moved out here. So what, 12 years? And then, yeah, I feel like I've shifted my worldview that, you know, life has challenges that you can choose to grow from, or it is going to knock you down, and life will then pass you by. And it's actually full of emotions that I feel, you know, society tells you that you're supposed to have all these good emotions and everything's supposed to be positive. And I feel that actually, you know, if you can learn to sit with emotions, then they all have their space, they all have their validity. So you sit with them, but then you've got to let them go and pass through you, is, I guess, the important part as well. So yeah, I just changed my life view, that life's for living, for experiencing, and everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely. And how, what was the initial kind of like aha moment that you kind of put together the things that you've been through into, you know, how you want to help the world, or, you know, what your mission is in life? How did that connect? What was the moment of which that connected?
Funny enough, like, I don't think there was a moment. It wasn't until I looked back once and I was like, I feel like my whole life has actually been, this is where I have this greater belief in something, is that I didn't choose to do the work that I'm doing necessarily. My whole life path has led me here. So, you know, I had these experiences as a teen. Then because of actually my mental health, I tried to go to university twice, but I just couldn't do it. I was, you know, either, you know, straight A student at 1 minute, and then I was coming out and I couldn't get out of bed the next, and I couldn't do it. So I became a nanny. I love kids, and just, it was, I don't want to say the word easy, but it was aligned with me. For years I worked with families. I worked in like daycare center. I came out here and did some nannying while I did go to uni. So I went back to uni when I was 30. And did psychology, and then I just found a real interest in, you know, child psychology, and in, you know, sort of looking at the lifespan and you know, particularly teenage years and things. I ended up then doing a master's in human rights and another one in masters of like law and policy, and my placement happened to be with refugee youths. So I worked in this organization that supports refugees and those who've experienced torture and trauma. So I worked with these group of beautiful youths. A lot of them, yeah, had either directly experienced some horrendous things, hence becoming refugees, or they had secondary trauma from their parents. After that, I ended up then getting a role working with kids in care. So kids in residential care or foster care as a youth advocate, which I also loved. And then after that, I ended up in a specialist unit here for child protection. So it's a child protection, works alongside the police and New South Wales Health. And it's like this tri-agency response unit to the worst forms of child abuse and child abuse allegations. And then it was from there I realized there's this whole cohort of kids that were like me, who came from a background that was too wealthy to be supported by community services. And also the types, I think, of trouble that these kids are getting into, because there's that money there. They are getting drug addiction to things like cocaine. Their parents, are working very hard, and they're absent as well, in the same way that, kids from low socioeconomic parents might be absent for other reasons. So there was these kind of similar and different experience these teens were having, but the groups I was finding in my unit were very largely unsupported. Since then, starting my business Unique Parenting, and focusing also on the family unit, because I think a lot of kids are either, they're the issue, they're the bad child, and then they're the ones that are labeled and sent off to therapy and to get help and everything. And, the parents, I feel like it's a relationship, though, it's 50-50 in the sense that they need to work together to heal and work out what's going on, and move forward as a family. So I try my best to work with parent and teen at the same time, and support the whole family unit.
So how does it feel? Because a lot of what we do is based off traumas, because we've had traumas, and it's nothing like relating with someone that has been through a trauma, because you can adapt to that situation. So so I guess what I want to ask is, because it's a beautiful thing and I love what you're doing. How do you implement your life experiences into the work that you're doing?
Yeah. Like, something I vividly remember thinking when I was a teenager was that the people that were trying to help me, I was like, what do you know? You don't know anything about this. You're from your ivory tower. You study psychology. You're trying to put me in this box and label me, throw medication at me and stuff like that. Like, you don't know anything. So I feel like there's this part of me that, I still carry my scars on my arm I've made them prettier. I don't know if you can see, with flowers, but they're still all up my arm. And, and so I've been there, and I've been to the point where I did attempt suicide. So I have been in the darkest space. I have had, addictions to everything. So I can sit there and just be like, you're not a bad kid. You're struggling with how to deal with your emotions. And then, on top of that, like, you can heal, you can get better, and you can not only survive, but you can thrive again, or not even again, like, you can thrive. Maybe these kids haven't at all. So I think, and there's a big element of, I guess, compassion that comes with it, empathy and understanding from it. It is very easy to see all these behaviors as just as bad kids, rather than pain-based, or an inability to express what's going on, or understand what's happening to them. So I think I think that aligned with my actual training and in trauma, and understanding sort of psychology behind it. I think it's a beautiful combination.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I always ask people that do get into, this line of work, are there any significant moments or significant people that you've helped, that kind of sit on your heart, that you always remember, or kind of keep you going as to why you're doing this?
Yeah. Strangely, maybe not strangely enough, but she's not actually a kid that I officially work with. I volunteered when I first, about nine years ago now, volunteered for a mentoring program. It was to support disadvantaged youth. So big brother, big sister mentoring. I don't know if you guys have it over there, but so they pair you up, with a disadvantaged kid, and you take them out once a week, and just, you're someone who's something that's stable for them, and you just I formed such a beautiful bond with this kid. Like, we got signed off of the program after the first year, and 9 years later, I met her when she was 7. She's now a 16-year-old young woman, and it will be her, because her background, like, both parents were alcoholics, smoked weed, neither of them worked, mum was a hoarder, just a really terrible home environment. Brother and sister, both of them actually have gotten in a lot of trouble. Brother was signed into care, just a lot of things that she's had to face. And she's like the one out of the family who has really, she's like very much succeeding. I'm like so proud of her. She actually left home herself and has just before Christmas, went to a refuge. And she's she's thriving. She's got a part-time job. She's doing TAFE course to be in childcare. She's fantastic at saving money. She's just a beautiful human being, and I'm like so proud of her. Like I can't have kids, and she's just the closest thing I'm ever going to have to a daughter. And I'm getting teared up. I'm like, she's one of the success stories for sure. I'm so proud of her.
Mm-hmm. That's touchy. So I don't know if you want to talk about the piece of not being able to have kids. We can skip that. But if you are, is that part of some of the mental health that you went through?
No, that's, I actually recently, a year and a half ago, got diagnosed with endometriosis, and something called adenomyosis. So them combined. So although I think there's a lot more known now about endometriosis, which is great. But I was one of those as well that I think it took me 10 years to get diagnosed with it. And that was pure accident. I had stomach issues, and then they ran a scan and then found out. So adenomyosis is a bit similar. So it's where the endometrial cells are growing elsewhere, but they actually grow inside the muscle of your uterus. So you end up with an enlarged uterus, extremely painful. Where the sort of blood cells are means that you're very high risk of like miscarriage, stillbirth, other issues with actually having a baby, and with getting pregnant in the first place as well, because where those cells are, it it can't implant. So, and then also between the two of them, it can impact your egg reserves and things as well. So it's actually female issues, unfortunately. But I guess there again, I kind of flipped that on its head of just like, I can probably help a lot more kids and families if I don't have my own anyway. So I can put my love and energy and drive into that.
Thank you for being open. I know that can be. I thank you for being open about that. I know that can be touchy. So if anyone's going through that and you've explained, especially if they're going through pains they don't know about, hopefully this can help them.
Yeah, like terribly bad period pains are not normal. Try and see someone. And honestly, if people keep, or doctors keep sending you away, just keep going back. Because I was told so many times it was different things. But I just keep going back to get answers for sure.
Now, was there a particular reason you chose to work with teens rather than, younger crowd or even adults?
I think teens are, that was the big period in my life for sure that stands out to me, is when I really needed support. And I think teens are quite often actually overlooked for support. I think there's a lot of stuff out there for younger kids and families, but I think teens are often put in the too hard basket, to be honest with you. So I thought, and then also I think parents who have teens that are struggling and causing them challenges really are desperate for support as well. Kids who are engaging in self-harming behaviors, addiction, absconding from school, all of those sorts of things are, overwhelming for parents. So to try and help them and teach them how to respond appropriately as well. And a lot of parents think they're doing the right thing, but are actually kind of causing more harm than good. So I think, I think they're a group of people that really need that support.
Your story is so touching. Your life experience is very touching. I want to ask real quick because you're tatted up too. Sorry, you're tatted too. So a lot of your tattoos are covering your scars of self-harm. Laura, is she paused it? Laura? Sorry, we had a minor technical difficulty. We're back. So I was asking Laura, is a lot of your tattoos covering your scarring from youth age?
Yes.
So Laura, I wanted to ask, the tattoos that you have, are they covering your self-harm as a child?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the ones on my arm, as you can see here, those ones are. Because you said before, the types of scars that I have. What did you say? Keloid? What are they?
Keloids.
Keloid. Yeah. When I
Yeah.
scar, they come up these, big white, very clear scarring. So, and I chose cherry blossom because they've got meaning of it's being fleeting. So I just wanted to kind of remind myself that though it's a chapter in my life, that it's a fleeting part overall. And, it's definitely part of my story, but I don't have to have it dictate what my future will be. And, I can grow and move on. And I love it now. I think it's beautiful and and I know it's there. So.
Great. So in regards to your teen advocacy here, where are the levels of what you're still trying to reach? What are your goals, and what you've already been able to obtain?
Yeah. I've probably got bigger goals than I've been able to, because unfortunately I started my business just as COVID hit, so I wasn't able to do any work sort of during that. But look, my biggest goal overall is to change the story that I think society and teens have about teens and adolescents, so they're not viewed as troubled and just a challenging period in life, and that with the right support and drive, teens can literally change the world. And we see them out there already kind of making massive impacts on the world. But I think the general thought about the teen years and adolescence is approached with trepidation, and I really wanted to change that messaging and the general thought about it, and bring some excitement to it, and what teens can really achieve, and the fact that they challenge you. Well, isn't that amazing? They question the world around them, and that's the first. For me, I think that's one of the first steps to change. You challenge the status quo, and then you battle for things to be better. So yeah, I really want to change the approach, because I have another business called Teen Revolution, and that is where I want to be focusing that type of messaging through. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we are almost at time. So I always end to ask, and then Sid is gonna ask you a question, and we'll close it out. Can you give the audience advice on what helped you to start the journey of healing, and just something supportive to help them from your life experience?
Yeah. Do you know, it's something that really resonated with me, and maybe this again is because I'm I found my spirituality, but that you are literally made from the stars. I don't quite want to go into the detail because I'll guarantee to get something wrong about it. But, you know, when the world came about, I don't know, like I say, Big Bang, whatever it was, you're literally part of a star. And how just incredibly special and beautiful that is. And always to remember, like, you know, you are the star and the main character of your life in the show. And, you know, it's just, people can say and do things to you. But if you keep that in mind, I think that you don't need to listen to them. Their opinions, they're not truths. And if you can just try and focus on how important you are and that, you know, you have meaning in this world. And there's no other person like you. So.
Absolutely wonderful advice. So we have come to the part of our segment called Shameless Plug. We like to let you use this time to give the viewers anything that you need to draw traction to, any merch you might have for sale, any appearances you have coming up, any way that you can or need to sell yourself and your product or services. You have the floor.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Look, I guess the only product, well, no, I have services, but the product that I have is I released my first book the end of last year, which I'm very proud of. And that's called Their World by Laura Chappell. And you can find that on Amazon. And that would probably be the best way to get a little bit of insight as well into my work and my approach. Tells a bit more about my story, but it is jam-packed full of information about understanding your teenager and their world and how they tick in it. And I'd also, you know, recommend your teen having a read through it as well. You can also get the ebook on my website, which also has a lot more information about, you know, who I am and what I do and my services. And then, look, I wholeheartedly admit, and I said earlier, probably still remnants of my bullying things, that I'm not the best at social media, but you can private message me, email me. I'm much better at kind of forming one-on-one relationships like that. But do follow me on social media, because I go through my spouts of putting things up, and there are definitely, you know, there's information there as well. I think I haven't currently got anything planned coming up. I did just move, so I'm kind of sort of restarting a little bit. But yeah, I do a lot of online work as well. So yeah, reach out. I'd love to hear from you, and happy to give advice where I can.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for being a guest on Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast. This is such an honor, and I truly, and your testimony will connect with someone else so that they can start the journey to healing. So especially our youth, when they are going through trials and tribulations and there's no outlet and nowhere to turn to, and the hurt on the inside and the bullying. I have a question, really quick, and then I'm going to roll it out. I just want you, being bullied, can you tell bullies the impact and like sum it up in like less than 1 minute that hurting others?
About bullies, what? Sorry.
Hurting others, the feeling that it has, the impact of bullying.
Yeah. Look, I think you can't underestimate what words can do to people. And I know bullies pick vulnerable souls, so you can literally destroy people's lives. And to be honest with you, it's going to be from pain-based behaviors, if you know it or not. So reach out and get yourself support instead of directing that at someone else. Talk to someone.
Perfect. Perfect. We want to thank you for being a guest on Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we're going to continue to share life experiences in hopes that someone will connect so that they can start the journey to healing. Laura, I want to thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your testimony with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. You do an amazing job. And yeah, I'm inspired by you, both of you.
Thank, thank you. You never know what you're going to get from me and Sid. So,
That's the way to be. Wonderful.
yes, and that's why we're organic because we never know.
No, perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. And y'all have a blessed day. We will see you soon.